There is a kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It's heavy. It's the silence that fills a room after another argument, when words have been hurled like knives and apologies are nothing but rehearsed lines. It is the silence of holding your breath when your partner walks into the room because you do not know if today they'll be kind or cruel. It's the silence of your heart screaming for freedom, but your lips too afraid to speak. If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, you know that silence well. It's not the silence of comfort. It's the silence of survival. At first, everything seemed perfect. That's how it often begins. The compliments, the laughter, the feeling of being chosen, cherished, and seen. You believed you had found someone who would stand beside you through everything. For weeks, months, maybe even years, you lived in that illusion. But slowly, something shifted. It didn't happen overnight. The decline was subtle. So subtle you didn't even notice it at first. A sarcastic comment here. A controlling suggestion there. A moment of rage explained away by stress. You told yourself, it's not that bad. Everyone has flaws. Relationships aren't perfect. And so you stayed. But the words got sharper. The control got tighter. The laughter disappeared. And the person who once made you feel alive now makes you feel like you're drowning. The slow poison of toxicity. Take Emily's story. When she first met her partner, he swept her off her feet. He texted her good morning every day, bought her flowers, and made her feel like the center of the universe. But months later, he started pointing out flaws in her appearance. Why do you wear so much makeup? Are you trying to impress someone else? Then came the criticism of her career. You're not really successful. If it wasn't for me, you'd be nothing. At first, Emily defended him to her friends. He's just protective. He wants the best for me. But deep down, she knew it wasn't protection. It was control. Slowly, her confidence eroded. She stopped dressing the way she liked. She stopped going out with friends. She even gave up on her dream of opening her own boutique because he convinced her she wasn't capable. By the time she realized she was trapped, she barely recognized the woman she had become. That's the slow poison of a toxic relationship. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It steals pieces of you until there's almost nothing left. The prison of manipulation. Then there's Michael, a kind-hearted man who fell in love with a woman that seemed to adore him, but she was skilled in manipulation. Every disagreement turned into a storm. If he tried to explain himself, she twisted his words. If he confronted her about her lies, she cried until he felt guilty. Every fight ended with him apologizing, even when he did nothing wrong. He told himself, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm not loving enough. Maybe I need to try harder. And that's exactly what toxic relationships do. They make you doubt your own reality. They convince you that you're too sensitive, too needy, too broken. They break you down until you forget that you are worthy of love, respect, and kindness. Why people stay outsiders often ask, why don't you just leave? But anyone who has lived through this knows it's not that simple. People stay for many reasons. Hope. They believe the good days will return, that the person they fell in love with is still there, buried beneath the anger. Fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of retaliation, fear of the unknown, guilt. They're made to believe that leaving is betrayal, that they're ungrateful, that it's their fault. Dependence. Sometimes financial, sometimes emotional, sometimes both. Leaving isn't just walking away. It feels like tearing your heart out. It feels like betraying your own love. It feels like jumping off a cliff with no guarantee you'll land safely. And yet, staying costs more. Staying robs you of peace, joy, confidence, and sometimes even your health. Staying is like slowly suffocating while convincing yourself you're still breathing. The moment of awakening. But there always comes a moment. A breaking point. A moment when the pain of staying becomes heavier than the fear of leaving. For some, it's a violent outburst. For others, it's the day they realize they haven't smiled in months. Sometimes, it's watching their children absorb the same patterns of pain. For Emily, the moment came when her best friend looked at her with tears and said, "I miss the old you." For Michael, it was the night he sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel, whispering to himself, "I can't do this anymore." And maybe as you're watching this, that moment is stirring inside you. Maybe you've been ignoring the red flags, silencing your inner voice and hoping for change, but deep down, you can't live like this forever. Here's the truth. Escaping a toxic relationship is not just about leaving someone else. It is about choosing yourself. It's about saying, "My life, my peace, my soul matters more than this prison." It's about realizing that love should not feel like chains. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, you'll cry more tears than you thought you had. But freedom is always on the other side of fear. Healing is always on the other side of heartbreak. And your future, the life you deserve, is waiting for the version of you who decides to be brave. Today, I want to walk you through the journey, step by step, not just why you should leave, but how to leave, how to heal, and how to rebuild a life where you don't just survive but thrive. Because you are not weak, you are not broken, and you are not trapped forever. How to escape a toxic relationship. Step 1. Recognize the red flags, the courage to see the truth. One of the hardest truths in life is admitting that the person you love is hurting you. Love makes us blind. It makes us excuse, minimize, and justify behaviors that, if we saw them in a friend's relationship, we would immediately call toxic. That's why recognizing the red flags is not just the first step to escaping, it is the most crucial step. Until you see clearly, you cannot move. The subtle start of toxicity. Rarely does toxicity begin with shouting, violence, or open abuse. Most times, it begins with subtlety, a controlling comment, a dismissive laugh, a sarcastic remark framed as a joke. Take Anna's story. When she started dating her boyfriend, he seemed protective. "I don't like that dress. It's too revealing," he said one evening before they went out. She thought, "That's sweet. He just wants me to be respected." But a month later, he didn't just comment on her clothes, he demanded she change. Later, he began telling her which friends were bad influences and insisted she stop seeing them. At first, she resisted, but he always knew how to twist his words. "I only say this because I love you. No one else cares about you like I do." By the time Anna realized what was happening, she was isolated. Her wardrobe was controlled, her circle of friends was gone, and she felt completely dependent on him. Lesson: toxic control often hides behind the mask of love. What seems protective in the beginning can become possessive later. The language of devaluation words have power. Toxic partners know this. They may not strike with fists, but their words cut deeper than any wound. Marcus lived with constant belittlement. His girlfriend would say, "You're so stupid," whenever he made small mistakes. At first, he laughed it off. Then, "You'll never achieve anything without me." After a while, Marcus started to believe her. His self-esteem dropped so low that he stopped trying to improve himself, convinced he wasn't good enough. What's worse, whenever he tried to talk about his feelings, she would accuse him of being too sensitive or dramatic. This is gaslighting at its finest, making you doubt your own feelings until you no longer trust your instincts. Lesson: if someone constantly makes you feel worthless, stupid, or crazy, that is not love. It's abuse in disguise. The cycle of charm and cruelty. Perhaps the most confusing part of a toxic relationship is the cycle. It's not always bad. In fact, sometimes it's wonderful, so wonderful it convinces you to stay. Rachel describes it like this: "It was like living with two different people. One week, he was sweet, thoughtful, and caring. He surprised me with flowers, made me laugh, and made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. But the next week, he was cold, distant, and cruel. He would yell at me for small things, accuse me of cheating, and punish me with silence. Just when I reached my breaking point, he would flip again, apologizing, crying, promising to change. And I stayed because I remembered the good version of him. This pattern, kindness followed by cruelty, is what traps so many people, because deep down, they keep hoping that the good side is the real one, and that if they're just patient enough, the bad days will disappear. But the truth is this: the cycle is the abuse. Lesson: if someone treats you wonderfully one day and destroys you the next, believe the whole pattern, not just the good parts. The physical and emotional warning signs. Red flags are not only in their behavior, they show up in your body and emotions too. Do you feel anxious every time your partner texts or calls? Do you hide parts of yourself because you're afraid of their reaction? Do you find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly adjusting to keep the peace? Do you feel lonelier in the relationship than you did when you were single? These are not small things. These are signs your body and spirit are warning you. This is not safe. Jennifer shared that she used to get stomach pains every time her husband's car pulled into the driveway. She brushed it off as stress, until she realized her body was screaming the truth her mind refused to admit. Lesson: your body knows when something is wrong. Don't ignore the tension, the anxiety, the fear. They are signals of danger. Why recognizing is so hard? If the signs are so clear, why do so many people struggle to admit they are in a toxic relationship? Because love clouds judgment. Because hope keeps us captive. Because we remember the good times and convince ourselves they outweigh the bad. Because fear tells us leaving will be worse than staying. But here is the truth. Until you recognize and admit the toxicity, you cannot break free. The first step is simply naming it. Saying the words, "This is not healthy. This is not love. This is hurting me." It won't fix everything instantly, but it will open your eyes. And once your eyes are open, you will never see the relationship the same again. Motivation. For step 1, you deserve to see the truth. You deserve to call what's happening by its real name. It's not stress. It's not normal ups and downs. It's not just how relationships are. No, this is toxic, and toxic will never turn healthy. The day you recognize that is the day your healing begins. Rebuild your inner strength, finding the you that was lost. When you've been in a toxic relationship for too long, you start to forget who you are. You stop recognizing your own reflection, not just in the mirror, but in your soul. The vibrant, confident person you used to be feels like a stranger. Instead, you're left with doubt, fear, and a voice in your head that constantly tells you, "You're not enough. You can't make it on your own. This is not an accident." Toxic partners strip away your strength deliberately. They know that if you believed in yourself, you would leave. So they chip at your confidence until you're convinced you're powerless. That's why rebuilding your inner strength is one of the most important steps in escaping. Without strength, you will keep circling back. With strength, you can finally walk away and not look back. The slow erosion of self-worth. Take David's story. He was a talented graphic designer with dreams of starting his own agency, but his partner constantly belittled him. "Anyone can do what you do. You're not special." At first, David brushed it off, but over time, those words stuck. He stopped applying for freelance opportunities. He stopped dreaming. He settled for a job he hated because he believed her voice more than his own. This is what toxicity does. It doesn't just hurt your feelings in the moment. It plants lies in your mind that echo long after the words are spoken. You begin to repeat those lies to yourself until they feel like truth. Lesson. The first step in rebuilding strength is recognizing that the negative voice in your head might not even be your own. It might be theirs, replaying on loop. Reconnecting with the past. One of the most powerful ways to rebuild strength is to remember who you were before the relationship. Who were you before their voice drowned out your own? What made you laugh? What were your passions, your goals, your dreams? Sophia used to love painting. She had shelves full of sketchbooks and dreamed of holding her first art exhibition. But her partner mocked her passion. "Painting won't pay the bills. It's a waste of time." Slowly, Sophia stopped painting altogether. Years passed. One day, after a particularly painful argument, she picked up an old brush just to distract herself. For the first time in years, she felt alive. The colors on the canvas reminded her that she was still in there, the Sophia who dreamed, the Sophia who created, the Sophia who mattered. That single act became the spark that lit her journey to freedom. Lesson: reconnect with the things that once gave you joy. They will remind you of the person you were before the relationship stole your light. Small acts of defiance. Rebuilding strength doesn't happen in one big leap. It happens in small acts of defiance against the lies. If they said, "You'll never make it without me," start saving money in secret. If they said, "No one else wants you," spend time with supportive friends who remind you of your worth. If they said, "You're not smart enough," take a class, read a book, or pick up a skill they mocked. These small actions may seem insignificant, but they are revolutionary. They are reminders to yourself that you are not as weak as they wanted you to believe. Marcus used to be mocked by his partner for cooking. "You're so slow in the kitchen. You'll never be a good husband." After she left one weekend, Marcus decided to cook a full meal for himself. It wasn't perfect, but when he sat down to eat, he realized something powerful. "I can take care of myself. I don't need her voice to define me." That small act gave him courage to begin doing more things independently, and slowly, his confidence returned. Lesson: strength is not built overnight. It is built one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. The power of affirmations and journaling. Toxic partners write their lies into your heart. To erase them, you must write your truth louder. Journaling and affirmations can become weapons of healing. Write down every achievement, no matter how small, every compliment you've ever received, every quality you love about yourself. Read them daily until your voice becomes louder than theirs. Jasmine started journaling every morning. At first, her entries were just pain and tears. But over time, she forced herself to write one positive thing about herself each day. "I am strong. I am kind. I am capable." Weeks turned into months, and eventually, her journal became a testimony of transformation. Lesson: what you write, you believe. Rewrite your story. Finding strength through support. Sometimes, rebuilding strength alone feels impossible. That's why finding mentors, support groups, or therapy can help. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your value. Their voices will drown out the lies you've been fed. When Linda left her marriage, she was a shell of herself. She couldn't make decisions, couldn't trust her instincts, and couldn't see her own value. But in a support group, she met women who had walked the same road. Every week they reminded her, "You are stronger than you think." Slowly, she began to believe it. Lesson: strength multiplies when shared. Don't rebuild alone. The spiritual dimension of strength. For many, faith becomes a source of strength. Prayer, meditation, or simply believing that a higher power still has a plan for you can restore hope. When you feel like you have nothing left inside, draw from something bigger than yourself. Daniel often says, "I didn't leave my toxic relationship because I was brave. I left because I finally believed God didn't create me to suffer." That belief gave him the courage he didn't have on his own. Lesson: tap into a higher source of strength. Sometimes what you can't do for yourself, faith will do for you. Motivational push for step 2. Rebuilding strength is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. You are not weak, you are not broken, you are not worthless. Those were lies spoken over you by someone who wanted control. The truth is this: you are capable, you are resilient, you are stronger than you think. Every scar you carry is proof that you've survived. And if you've survived this long under chains, imagine how powerful you'll be when you finally set yourself free.